A poor college girl goes shopping at the mall. She's too broke to buy anything, so she just looks. She stares at diamond rings priced at millions in the display window. The girl drools over them like crazy. But surprisingly, a man nearby doesn't even ask about the price. He immediately pulls out his rural credit union card. Then he casually buys the most expensive ring. The girl can't miss this chance with such a rich guy, so she follows the man quietly. The man notices and asks what she wants, but the girl hesitates on purpose. Then she turns to leave. The man thinks she wants to confess, but can't say it, so he stops her. But the girl just asks for the receipt from his ring purchase. She wants to exchange points for free stuff. Seeing her flirty look, the man gets so scared he shrinks back. Just then his phone rings. It's Yoonju calling. Hearing he's struggling to help his crush clean her place, the girl offers to teach him special dating tricks in exchange for his receipt. Then she grabs the receipt and runs off. To his surprise, she returns with cleaning gloves for him. She says rich people should keep romance simple. If he does chores himself, his crush will be so moved she'll cry. Then the girl walks away. The man looks at the cheap gloves in his hand. He feels like a total fool. But then Yoonju suddenly says if he helps her clean, she would be super touched. The girl then uses the receipt to exchange for the suitcase she's been dreaming of. But when she gets home, her sister won't let her in. With nowhere to go, she has no choice. She spends the night in the school office. Just then she accidentally finds out that the professor she likes had a first love who's a museum director. To learn more about her rival, she goes to the museum. Surprisingly, she runs into the rich guy again, seeing someone she knows. She complains that her rival is a sly woman. But after introductions, she realizes the director, Yoonju, is actually the girl the rich guy likes. She feels extremely awkward. She volunteers to pretend to be the man's girlfriend, hoping to make Yoonju jealous so she'll date him. The man thinks Yoonju won't care about such an ordinary girl. But surprisingly, Yoonju gets jealous. So the man plays along with the act. They keep showing off their fake love. They talk about meeting parents, then joke about having 3 kids right away. This makes Yoonju so mad she storms off. She quickly leaves to change her pants to thank the girl for helping him. The man treats her to famous stinky noodle soup. As they are about to say goodbye, Hae-young gets a call that his grandfather, the wealthy Chairman Park, is seriously ill. The sick chairman shares his final wish. He wants Hae-young to find a girl named Lee Seol. The chairman feels he owes her his whole life. This makes Hae-young suspect Lee Seol might be his grandfather's secret daughter. Though he doesn't want her for his grandfather, he still goes to the address. But to his shock, the Lee Seol he's looking for is the girl he recently met. Remembering their past meetings, Hae-young wonders if Lee Seol is trying to get close to him on purpose. To be safe, he stays at Lee Seol's family guest house. After spending time together, he learns Lee Seol is truly an orphan. So Hae-young tells her why he came. He says he's her nephew. Hearing she suddenly has a nephew, Lee Seol's whole world and beliefs are shaken. But when she sees Hae-young's business card, she's so shocked, she almost loses control. His name is Park Hae-young. His grandfather leads Korea's top business group with trillions in wealth. If she's the chairman's daughter, she could inherit trillions instantly. Hae-young then takes Lee Seol home. Chairman Park has already prepared thousands of children to welcome her. Just as Lee Seol is completely shocked by this, the 82-year-old chairman kneels before Lee Seol. He immediately calls her mother and addresses her as Your Highness. At this moment, everyone is frozen in shock. But Chairman Park continues saying he is a sinner. Even if he dies now, he has no regrets. He calls her Your Highness again. This scene leaves everyone completely confused. Then Chairman Park tells Lee Seol that her true identity is a descendant of royalty. During the war, Emperor Sunjong was forced to flee to find the lost Prince Lee Young. Emperor Sunjong gave this difficult task to Chairman Park's father. But as a young boy, Chairman Park ran away with the money. Before liberation, he used that money to start Daehan Group. Since then, he has wanted to find the royal descendants and make up for his sins. Hearing she is Korea's only princess, Lee Seol is completely stunned. But more than her royal status, she cares about where her father is now. Sadly, Chairman Park says her father has passed away. Lee Seol can't accept this news. Lee Seol immediately stands up and leaves angrily. Meanwhile, outside the door, Park Hae-young is also curious about what happened. With no one else to talk to, Lee Seol cries to Hae-young. She says she doesn't care about being royal family descendant. She just wants her father to be alive. But Chairman Park has crushed her hope. She thinks Chairman Park went too far. Hae-young pulls her close into his warm chest. He keeps comforting her. Later, Hae-young takes Lee Seol back to her sister's house, but again she's not allowed inside. Hae-young wonders why the sisters don't get along. Lee Seol says they were both adopted. They never had a good relationship. Seeing Lee Seol has nowhere to go. Hae-young takes her to his home. When Lee Seol calms down, Hae-young serves her a fancy steak. Then he pours 2 glasses of special wine. Enjoying the delicious steak, Lee Seol forgets her sadness for now. But suddenly Hae-young's phone rings loudly. It's Yoonju calling. Hearing his crush Yoonju is visiting Hae-young, panics completely. He quickly hides Lee Seol in a guest room. Then he opens the door to greet his crush. Meanwhile, Lee Seol keeps enjoying her steak in the guest room. But suddenly Lee Seol feels a strong urge to poop. The desperate feeling makes her jump around like she's breakdancing. She can barely hold it in. She quickly calls Park Hae-young for help. But faced with this emergency, Hae-young doesn't know what to do. He tells Lee Seol to figure it out herself. But Lee Seol can't wait any longer. She threatens Hae-young, saying if he doesn't fix this in 1 minute, she'll take matters into her own hands. She looks at the designer bags in the room, thinking about which one to use as a toilet. This crazy idea shocks Hae-young to his core. Luckily, Yoonju notices his nervousness and decides to leave on her own. Just as Hae-young is about to send her away, something unexpected happens. Yoonju spots Lee Seol's boots. Hae-young tries to lie his way out, but Lee Seol suddenly yells, "I can't hold it anymore." This is the craziest chaebol chairman I've ever seen. His lifelong dream is to restore the Korean monarchy at any cost. To achieve his goal, he promises the public that, based on a national vote, if the royal family is successfully restored, he promises to give all his personal wealth back to society. When this news comes out, it causes a huge public reaction. Everyone starts talking about it. Meanwhile, royal descendant Lee Seol is still casually eating in the university cafeteria, completely unaware of the situation. Just then Park Hae-young urgently finds her. Before he can take Lee Seol away, hundreds of reporters rush toward them to protect Lee Seol's identity. Hae-young quickly wraps her in his coat. Then they start running away, but the reporters chase them like flies attracted to honey. Lee Seol barely gets in the car when reporters surround them. As Hae-young thinks of an escape plan, a reporter suddenly asks if the woman in the car is the princess. This makes the crowd even wilder. Everyone tries to see the princess. With no choice, Hae-young lies that she's his fiancée. When reporters relax slightly, he quickly drives away in his van and takes Lee Seol to his family's hotel. Lee Seol sees Park Hae-young quickly pulling her into the room. Lee Seol immediately covers her flat chest. Hae-young looks annoyed by this. He says he has no interest in her at all. Then Lee Seol praises Hae-young. She thanks him for protecting her. Hae-young takes this chance to share his life story. He says he grew up without a father. If Chairman Park dies someday, he would inherit the family business. So the media always watched his private life. Now Chairman Park gives all his wealth away and leaves nothing for him. This makes Hae-young very angry. Lee Seol feels the same way. Then Lee Seol opens her laptop. She finds news about her identity. The rumors are already trending online. Luckily her face wasn't shown. At the same time Chairman Park sees the news. He gets very angry. He yells at Secretary, "Oh, Yoonju doesn't care about what's happening. She only cares if Chairman Park will give up his wealth." When she learns he really will, Yoonju becomes furious. Chairman Park once promised she would marry Hae-young. She was about to become a rich wife, but now this princess ruins everything. This makes Yoonju very upset. She immediately goes to discuss solutions with Hae-young. But as soon as she enters the hotel, she sees Lee Seol walking out wrapped in a blanket. This reminds her of what happened earlier at Hae-young's house. She originally wanted to bond with Hae-young, but instead saw Lee Seol fertilizing plants at his place. Angry, she turns around and goes to meet her first love. Then she practices martial arts all night. Now, seeing Lee Seol again, Yoonju gets even angrier. She immediately starts complaining to Hae-young. Hae-young explains everything that happened before. To protect Chairman Park's wealth, Hae-young starts negotiating with Lee Seol. He promises to help her with anything she wants. The only condition is that Lee Seol must leave Korea, but Lee Seol refuses to accept her princess identity. She also can't accept that her father has passed away. So both sides reach a deadlock. Just then Yoonju's father suddenly calls Lee Seol, tries to leave, but Hae-young says he'll take her to see her father. With a wave of his hand, Hae-young summons a helicopter. Faced with such extreme wealth, Cinderella, Lee Seol is shocked beyond words. This scene reminds her of her childhood days at a construction site with her father. Back then a helicopter also flew to the site. The person coming to see them is Chairman Park, thinking she'll finally meet her father after 20 years apart. Lee Seol can't hold back her tears. But the next moment Chairman Park takes Lee Seol to a graveyard before she can process what's happening. Chairman Park says the grave contains Lee Seol's royal father. Lee Seol refuses to believe this, but Chairman Park sadly confirms it's true. Years ago Chairman Park found Lee Seol's father. He wanted him to rebuild the royal family, but Lee Seol's father chose to keep working construction instead of becoming king. So he ran away with Lee Seol. That night Chairman Park chased after them. Sadly, Lee Seol's father died during the escape when a truck hit him. Learning the truth, Lee Seol can't forgive Chairman Park. She angrily walks away. At the same time, Hae-young doesn't want his grandfather to give all his money to restore the royal family. So he suggests to Lee Seol, the best revenge is to overthrow the royal family. This way he keeps his inheritance too. It's a win-win situation. Wanting to express her anger, Lee Seol agrees to Hae-young's plan and decides to study abroad. Lee Seol then goes to school to take a leave of absence. Yoonju works overtime to keep her status as a chaebol wife. She stays up all night preparing Lee Seol's study abroad documents. This makes Lee Seol see Yoonju in a new light. As she leaves school she meets Professor Nam, the history teacher she likes. Professor Nam has been studying the royal family. He quickly figures out Lee Seol is the princess Chairman Park wants to crown. He offers to walk Lee Seol home. Hae-young arrives just then. Professor Nam is Yoonju's first love and Hae-young's rival. Hae-young dislikes Professor Nam. They start arguing right away. The tension between them grows. Just then they see Lee Seol's sister stopped by reporters. Hae-young quickly takes Lee Seol away. They return to Lee Seol's family guest house. Seeing a stranger bring her daughter home, Lee Seol's mom gets very curious. She asks about everything, even future baby names. This makes them both uncomfortable. To push them together, Lee Seol's mom tells Hae-young to rest in her room. She even closes the door behind them. Hae-young doesn't hesitate. He picks up Lee Seol's photo album. Lee Seol tries to stop him from seeing her embarrassing photos. She quickly tries to grab it back from him, but by accident they fall onto the bed and start playfully wrestling. This almost gives Lee Seol's mom a heart attack. She tells them to behave themselves. Later, Hae-young drives Lee Seol to the airport. Lee Seol doesn't want to be a princess, but she also can't bear to leave her family. Just as she's feeling sad, security stops her at the checkpoint. They tell Lee Seol she's banned from traveling abroad. Her passport is confiscated too. Lee Seol asks in shock, "What? With her travel plans ruined?" Lee Seol remembers the goodbye letter she left for her mom before leaving home. If her mom finds out she planned to run away, she'll be in big trouble. She rushes home to destroy the letter. But her mom took the letter to church inside her Bible. They hurry to the church. They sneak in and sit behind Lee Seol's mom working together. Hae-young finally gets the Bible, but when he looks through it the letter isn't there, because Lee Seol's mom gave it to the priest as a prayer note. When the priest starts reading the letter aloud, Lee Seol is stunned. She quickly takes Hae-young and runs out of the church. Her mother notices and chases after them. She starts hitting Lee Seol like crazy in front of everyone. Hae-young quickly steps in to protect Lee Seol. The priest, who knows a lot, recognizes who Hae-young is. He finds out Hae-young is the heir to Korea's biggest company. Lee Seol's mom is so shocked, she almost loses control. After seeing news about them online, she thinks they're running away to Egypt together. She isn't angry at all. Instead, she thinks their love story is romantic. Hae-young doesn't want Lee Seol's royal identity to be known, so he plays along with the story to make it more believable. He even kneels and begs Lee Seol's mom to accept their relationship. Lee Seol watches this and feels completely embarrassed. Lee Seol's mom is thrilled to suddenly get such a perfect son-in-law. She asks when they'll get married. They both freeze when they hear this. Luckily, the company's bodyguards arrive just then. Hae-young uses this chance to escape. Before leaving, he acts extra sweet in front of Lee Seol's mom. He tells Lee Seol to stay put until he returns. Then he goes to talk to his grandfather. He tries to convince him not to give away all their money, but Chairman Park gets angry and yells at him. He says, Hae-young is just as useless as his father was. Now Hae-young finally understands his father was actually kicked out of Korea for opposing the royal restoration. Hae-young feels heartbroken and angry. This makes him hate the royal restoration plan even more. After returning home, Hae-young immediately takes out his perfectly toned 8-pack abs to show off. After drinking 2 tons of tap water from 1982, he finally comes up with a plan. He quickly finds Assemblyman So, who also opposes the royal restoration. He asks Assemblyman So to lift Lee Seol's travel ban, but Assemblyman So says he has explosive information. Even without sending Lee Seol away, he can overthrow the royal family. Meanwhile, Lee Seol suddenly remembers the love letter she left for Professor Nam. She rushes to the school to destroy it, but she gets surrounded by hundreds of reporters. Hae-young hears about this and hurries to the school. He calls in a large group of bodyguards. They pin the reporters against the walls one by one. While the bodyguards fight with the reporters, Hae-young quickly takes Lee Seol and escapes in a van. They drive for hours before stopping during their break. Lee Seol can't help but admire Hae-young's handsome face. Then they go to a small restaurant. Since it's in a remote countryside area, no one recognizes Lee Seol as the princess. As they enjoy their world-famous kimchi stew, the TV reports news about the princess. The news reveals that Lee Seol's royal father was lazy when he was alive. He also took part in scams and thefts. Many times people start talking about this news. Lee Seol gets very angry about this. To clear her father's name, Lee Seol decides to return as princess. To change public opinion, Chairman Park arrives with his staff. She leaves with Chairman Park abandoning Hae-young. What Lee Seol doesn't expect is Chairman Park has built a huge luxury palace just for her. Looking at the grand palace made just for her, Princess Lee Seol is so shocked her pants split. But the surprises don't end there. There are hundreds of maids and royal chefs serving her. Her bedroom has a fancy walk-in closet full of shoes and bags everywhere. She can't take her eyes off them. There are countless expensive dresses too. She can't choose which to wear. Lee Seol immediately gets lost in this fairy tale-like dream world. Lee Seol's adoptive mother never expected the orphan she raised for years would suddenly become a royal princess. Facing this sudden change in status, her adoptive mother doesn't know what to do. She stutters while calling her, "Your Highness." After getting Chairman Park's permission, the adoptive mother excitedly hugs her daughter. Then Chairman Park tells the adoptive mother about Lee Seol's background. The adoptive mother feels deeply moved. She feels very proud to have a princess as her daughter. After sending her mother home, Lee Seol asks Chairman Park to help clear her father's name. But Chairman Park says to truly make this happen, only royal authority can do it, and only Lee Seol can make it happen. So he hopes Lee Seol will work hard to restore the royal family. Lee Seol feels overwhelmed by the pressure. While Lee Seol's life suddenly turns heavenly, Park Hae-young's life feels like hell. To punish Hae-young for blocking the royal family's revival, Chairman Park sends people to Hae-young's home to seize all his belongings. Everything in his house is quickly sealed off. Even his size 38 Chelsea slippers aren't spared. In the end, Hae-young can only take his personal items and leave home alone. He tries to check if any of his other properties are still available, but he finds all his homes have been taken back by his grandfather. Meanwhile, Lee Seol takes her attendants to the mall. People quickly recognize Lee Seol. They rush to take photos and post them online. Lee Seol warmly greets the crowd. No one expects what happens next. Park Hae-young happens to be shopping for armor in the same mall. He hides quickly, so Lee Seol won't see him looking messy. But Lee Seol spots him anyway. Hae-young feels so embarrassed he wants to disappear. He tries hard to act calm, seeing Lee Seol so successful while he's struggling. This makes Hae-young angrier. He comes up with a plan. When Lee Seol returns to the palace, Professor Nam, who she likes, visits. Lee Seol happily meets Professor Nam. Just then her phone rings. She asks the professor to wait and answers the call. It's Hae-young calling. He threatens Lee Seol if she doesn't meet him outside he'll tell everyone they're getting married. Lee Seol has no choice. She asks Professor Nam to take her out. The palace chef Gun sees this that he thinks the princess is being kidnapped. He jumps on his scooter to follow them. During the chase, Lee Seol and Professor Nam crash at a construction site. They have a car accident. The only princess of Korea, Lee Seol, lies on the hospital bed screaming in pain. But the doctor says it's nothing serious. Hae-young thinks Lee Seol is faking it. When she hears this, she grabs Lee Seol's arm to pull her away. But Lee Seol screams in pain. She yells that her arm is about to break. Professor Nam quickly steps in to stop Hae-young, seeing Lee Seol almost in tears. Hae-young finally believes she's badly hurt. She and Professor Nam hurry to complete the hospital paperwork. While they're away, Gun sneaks in to check on Lee Seol. to hide that she left the palace. Lee Seol asks Gun to return and pretend to be her. He wears a pink hairpin and hides under the blanket. A maid notices something's wrong. She tries to pull the blanket off, but Gun waves his hands wildly to shoo her away. After the maid leaves, Gun lets out a big sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Lee Seol stays in the hospital bossing Hae-young around to bring her drinks. But after drinking the water, she suddenly waves her arm around like it's fine. Hae-young gets so mad she wants to chop it off and make spicy chicken feet. But Lee Seol doesn't stop there. Soon after, she shares yesterday's meal with Hae-young by throwing it up, with no other choice. Hae-young has no choice but to go with Lee Seol to the bathroom. Just as they prepare to return to the hospital room, they meet a mother with her child in the hallway. Since there are no available rooms, the hospital refuses to treat them. Seeing this, Lee Seol gives her bed to the sick child, then checks out of the hospital. When they reach the car, Lee Seol starts feeling dizzy. Hae-young thinks she's pretending again, so he ignores her. But suddenly Lee Seol faints and falls to the ground. They can't go back to the hospital now, so Hae-young takes Lee Seol home. He quickly brings a basin of cold water to cool her down. Then, with his amazing one-handed button skills, he changes Lee Seol's clothes. Seeing the scars on Lee Seol's arm, Hae-young realizes she wasn't faking. He feels heartbroken. The next day, Lee Seol feels better. Hae-young cooks porridge for her and even feeds her himself. Then Lee Seol realizes Hae-young changed all her clothes while she was unconscious. She angrily calls him a pervert, but Hae-young says her flat chest isn't worth looking at. Then Lee Seol notices Hae-young's house is covered in eviction notices. When Lee Seol learns she became a princess and caused Park Hae-young's bankruptcy, she feels very guilty. But just then Lee Seol accidentally finds some documents. They contain news articles falsely accusing her father, the emperor, of crimes. These articles match exactly what was shown on TV. This makes Lee Seol suspect Hae-young is the one who framed her father. Hae-young strongly denies it, but Lee Seol doesn't believe him. They start arguing angry. Lee Seol turns and leaves. Just then Chairman Park comes to pick her up. Lee Seol leaves with him. To her surprise, Chairman Park takes her to meet the president. The president promises full support to restore the royal family. With the president's backing, Lee Seol becomes more determined to be a princess. She moves back into the palace, thinking she won't see Hae-young again. But when she wakes up, Hae-young is now her royal advisor. Before she can understand why, he rushes to her bedside, jokingly asking if she's dazzled by his handsome face. Facing his flirty teasing, Lee Seol ignores him. She just wants to know why he's in her bedroom. Hae-young says with a meaningful look, their relationship is about to change a lot. Then Lee Seol finds out Hae-young has been assigned by the president as her royal tutor. He will be in charge of her education and manners, and he will also live in the palace. Lee Seol strongly disagrees. She says they had rumors before, and those rumors are still not over. If people find out they live in the palace together, it will be even harder to explain. But the president thinks their teacher-student relationship can clear up the rumors, and no one in the country is better than Hae-young for this job. Hearing this from the president, Lee Seol has no choice but to accept. She thinks Hae-young will just pretend, waste some time, and then leave. But Hae-young makes a strict schedule for her. She has to wake up at 6 a.m. every day to study. For Lee Seol, who loves to sleep in, this is just ridiculous. So she ignores it completely. But Hae-young doesn't let her off easy. He throws an alarm clock into her blanket, scaring Lee Seol so much she almost changes the sheets to avoid studying. Lee Seol says Hae-young isn't qualified to teach, but Hae-young quickly pulls out. He takes out all teaching certificates. They include qualifications for economics and management. He even has certificates for excavators and postpartum care for mother pigs. Lee Seol is speechless. To test Lee Seol's basic knowledge, Park Hae-young gives her an exam. To Lee Seol's surprise, the test is entirely in English. For a poor student like her, it's like reading gibberish. She uses her secret trick. Pick the shortest answer. Pick the longest answer. After her hard work, she scores a perfect 0. Even Park Hae-young is amazed by this result. Lee Seol thinks this is just an unimportant little test. But Park Hae-young says she'll show the score to the president and announce it to the whole country. Lee Seol panics when she realizes she'll become a national joke. She starts to worry. She tries everything to get the test back, but Park Hae-young won't let her. They end up in a standoff. Lee Seol stubbornly stays on Park Hae-young's bed. But Park Hae-young isn't scared. He jumps and lies down next to Lee Seol. Lee Seol angrily tries to kick her off the bed, but she almost falls off herself. Hae-young quickly catches Lee Seol before she falls, but accidentally gives her a tight hug. At that moment, both of them feel flustered. To ease the awkwardness, Hae-young promises not to give the test papers to the president. They agree to meet for class on time the next day. Back in her room, Lee Seol remembers the hug. Her face turns red with embarrassment. She tosses in bed, unable to sleep. Even as the blankets rub together to distract herself, Lee Seol starts doing exercises. Soon it's morning, but Lee Seol oversleeps again. She even calls out Professor Nam's name in her sleep. Angry Hae-young picks her up from the bed, then throws her into the courtyard pond in front of everyone. Seeing the princess in such a state, the maids feel sorry for her. After this incident, Lee Seol realizes Hae-young is serious. She stops slacking off. Hae-young makes a strict training plan for her. According to the plan, Lee Seol must study all day, only stopping to eat. She must wake up at 6 a.m. daily and run 30 laps around the courtyard. Lee Seol is so shocked her jaw drops. This is even crazier than preparing for college entrance exams. But to become a real princess, Lee Seol has to endure it. Soon after, Lee Seol's adoptive mother and sister are invited to the palace since they haven't met for a long time. Lee Seol is very excited. But what she doesn't expect is her adoptive mother came to change the family registry. She removes Lee Seol from the family register, then changes Lee Seol to royal household status. This means she will legally cut ties with her adoptive mother. Lee Seol finds this hard to accept. But to restore the royal family, Lee Seol has no choice. For Lee Seol's happiness, her adoptive mother signs the papers. Then mother and daughter cry in each other's arms. Even after her mother leaves, Lee Seol's tears keep flowing like a waterfall. Hae-young hears this outside and feels sorry for her. The next day, Hae-young thinks about how to comfort Lee Seol. But Lee Seol quickly cheers up. She decides to study hard. As she gets into it, Lee Seol starts acting more like a princess. With the Royal Restoration press conference coming soon, Lee Seol's image makeover plan begins. The person in charge of Lee Seol's public image is Yoon-ju, who just became chairman of the Royal Foundation. Facing a closet full of Armani clothes, Lee Seol feels very excited. But just then Yoon-ju says coldly, "Let her enjoy it while she can, while she still has the chance." Lee Seol doesn't understand her meaning. Yoon-ju says whether she leaves on her own or gets kicked out, she'll leave the palace sooner or later. Many people don't like her. Chairman Park won't last much longer. No one in the palace will help her. She should think about her future. It's best if she disappears soon. Lee Seol feels a chill down her spine. But that's not all. When discussing Lee Seol's princess image, Yoon-ju insists they must avoid reminding people. Lee Seol was an orphan and adopted the image. Consultants say this will be very hard. Lee Seol's confidence takes a hit. But Hae-young tells Lee Seol her real challenges are just beginning. Once she becomes a princess, more people will attack her. She shouldn't be so naive to appear less vulnerable. Lee Seol hides in a golden carriage and watches empresses in the palace, repeatedly memorizing palace schemes to fight back. When Hae-young finds out, he's completely speechless. Soon after, Lee Seol's adoptive mother and sister are invited to the palace again. This time the palace prepares lots of designer clothes for them. Her adoptive mother and sister are very happy with the gifts. But to their surprise, Hae-young announces something to them. The media once reported that Lee Seol's father was a fraud, but actually her adoptive father was the real criminal. Now, to clear her royal father's name, he wants to reveal the truth. Lee Seol's sister thinks Lee Seol is hurting their family's reputation to protect her princess status. This causes a big fight between the sisters. Lee Seol doesn't want her family to suffer because of her. She asks Hae-young why he's being so cruel, but Hae-young thinks Lee Seol is being selfish. He says he's lost everything to make her a princess. Yet she wants both the princess title and to keep her adoptive family. They end the conversation angrily to find a way that doesn't hurt her adoptive father, but still clears her royal father's name. Lee Seol asks Professor Nam for help. She wants him to find proof of her royal father's innocence. After hearing her problem, Professor Nam agrees immediately to thank him for his help. Lee Seol invites Professor Nam to the royal cafeteria to eat braised pork, but they unexpectedly run into Hae-young and Yoon-ju there. Seeing Lee Seol and Professor Nam so close, Hae-young feels a bit jealous, so he starts mocking Lee Seol. But Professor Nam stands up for Lee Seol. Yoon-ju watches as the two men fight over Lee Seol. This makes Yoonju resent Lee Seol even more. Later, Professor Nam meets with Chairman Park to continue studying the royal family. Professor Nam agrees to join the Royal Foundation. He becomes a director of the foundation. Soon after, someone who knows Lee Seol's father calls the palace, but the call keeps getting blocked. Finally, the call reaches Hae-young's phone. Hae-young is confused by this. He asks Secretary Oh why she hid this information. Secretary Oh says she did it to protect Hae-young from losing his father. This only confuses Hae-young more. Under Hae-young's pressure, Secretary Oh reveals a shocking secret. Years ago, Hae-young's father threatened Lee Seol's father to stop the royal family's restoration. He warned that if Lee Seol's father ever appeared before Chairman Park again, Hae-young's father would make them disappear forever. After that, Lee Seol and her father lived in. Lee Seol and Hwang Ah-ma live a miserable life on the run. Hae-young is heartbroken when he learns the truth. He also feels very guilty toward Lee Seol. To make up for his guilt, Hae-young takes Lee Seol to meet his father's old friend. With the friend's help, Lee Seol slowly remembers things about her father. This makes Lee Seol very happy. She immediately orders 2 bottles of vintage lay-by soda to celebrate, but she accidentally drinks too much. Hae-young has no choice but to carry her back. As they rest on some steps, Lee Seol suddenly puckers her 15 centimeters lips and gives Hae-young a big kiss. Seeing the romantic mood has reached its peak, Hae-young thinks it's rude not to respond. So he also puckers his 15 centimeters lips and passionately kisses Lee Seol back. After eating and drinking, Hae-young takes Lee Seol back to her place. Lee Seol thinks this is the start of their romance. But when she wakes up the next day, Hae-young is gone. Lee Seol quickly gets up to look for him, but royal guards force her into a car. Lee Seol tries to escape, but finds the doors are locked. Just then Hae-young calls Lee Seol. Lee Seol answers and begs Hae-young to come get her, but Hae-young coldly says he won't come. He asks what nonsense she's talking. He says he's already abandoned her. Lee Seol is completely shocked by his words. Meanwhile, the press conference for the princess's palace arrival is happening, but Princess Lee Seol never shows up. The whole place quickly gets chaotic as everyone wonders what's happening. Hae-young steps up as the spokesperson. He announces that the princess can't attend due to personal reasons. He also says the event will be postponed. Then he makes a royal statement. The news about Lee Seol's father being a fraud was wrong. Her adoptive father is the real criminal. The reporters are shocked by this news. Soon Lee Seol's adoptive mom and sister see the report. Sister Lee Dan thinks Lee Seol is ruining her future. She gets furious. Lee Seol rushes home after seeing the news. She tries to explain to her family, but no matter how much she begs, Lee Dan won't let their mom open the door. Finally, Lee Seol can only helplessly. Lee Seol collapses outside the door, crying her heart out. Then Professor Nam appears, seeing Lee Seol so heartbroken. He encourages her to stay strong because, compared to her family's situation, Lee Seol is in even greater danger. Now Lee Seol must either give up being a princess and return to her family, or wipe her tears and keep fighting. There is no third choice for her. Lee Seol suddenly realizes the truth. She decides to go back to the palace. Then she finds Park Hae-young. She yells at him, calling him a big bad guy, while hitting his chest with her tiny fists. But Hae-young tells her again not to be so naive. If she wants to be a princess, she must be ready to give up some things, even family and loved ones. If she can't accept that cost, she should give up being a princess now. Lee Seol is deeply hurt by his words. Hae-young also feels uneasy after his harsh speech, but Lee Seol's struggles are just beginning. Yoonju uses Lee Seol's unauthorized palace leave to warn the palace maids. She orders that all palace matters must go through her first. Then she locks Lee Seol in her room. Lee Seol isn't allowed to step outside. To control Lee Seol further, she even plans to send Lee Seol to the hospital. She wants Lee Seol to pretend to be sick. This would explain why she missed the press conference. Seeing she's about to become Yoonju's puppet, Lee Seol starts fighting back. She immediately gathers all the palace staff. Then she announces she'll hold another press conference when Lee Seol stands up to Yoonju. Professor Nam quickly shows his support. That evening, Chairman Park calls everyone for dinner. To stop the rumors about Hae-young and Lee Seol from affecting the royal family's reputation, Chairman Park decides Hae-young should marry Yoonju. Lee Seol is shocked by this news. Hae-young agrees to the marriage without hesitation, but surprisingly Yoonju, who always wanted to be a rich wife, refuses right away. When Chairman Park asks why, Yoonju says she won't marry just because she's told to. She wants to marry only after receiving a beautiful proposal. Chairman Park understands her feelings, but her real plan is to step back to move forward. She knows Hae-young's heart no longer belongs to her. She asks Hae-young why he agreed to marry her. Hae-young says he only did it because he didn't want Yoonju to lose face in front of Professor Nam, her first love. Now Yoonju finally understands. She realizes that her two-timing behavior ruined her relationship with Hae-young. Yoonju has nothing to say now. At the same time, since Chairman Park announced Hae-young and Yoonju's engagement, Lee Seol has been in a terrible mood. She immediately curses Hae-young behind his back. Hae-young overhears this awkward moment. She complains about being dumped, but Hae-young says she wasn't dumped. He tells her not to use excuses to stay up late tomorrow. All her personal info will be made public. Then Hae-young leaves. Sadly, the next day Hae-young organizes all of Lee Seol's information. Lee Seol is so scared, she almost loses control. The details are too thorough. It even categorizes all the friends she ever kissed. It lists every questionable website she ever visited. All her private assets will be exposed too. To avoid becoming a joke for her tiny bank balance, she rushes to withdraw all her money. Then she donates it all to buy sea cucumbers for the national soccer team. After doing this, Lee Seol finally relaxes. Just then her sister, Lee Dan, arrives at the palace again. Lee Seol feels happy. When she finally sees her sister, she gets very excited. But Lee Dan is still angry about their foster father's past being revealed. She thinks Lee Seol did it on purpose. To show her anger, she starts acting like a crazy dog. She smashes Lee Seol's favorite things. Just as she's about to hit Lee Seol Park, Hae-young stops her to help Lee Seol fix family problems. Hae-young talks to Lee Seol's foster mom. He says it was all his idea. The foster mom understands Lee Seol better now. Then Lee Seol arrives. Seeing the door still closed, she talks through it to her mom. She says she likes Hae-young, but he's going to marry someone else. This makes her very sad. After talking, she leaves. She doesn't know. Hae-young heard everything. When she realizes he heard her confession, she feels super embarrassed. She tries to explain to Hae-young, but he drives past her fast, so she stops a truck to chase him. When she calls herself a princess, the truck driver thinks she's crazy. When she catches up to Hae-young, she tries to explain again. Lee Seol quickly explains that she wasn't talking about Hae-young earlier, but this only makes Hae-young more certain that Lee Seol has feelings for him. Soon after, the press conference is held again. This time Lee Seol feels confident. She believes her charm will surely leave a good impression on the people and make them agree to restore the royal family. But when she proudly arrives at the press conference, she finds very few reporters have shown up. This is all Yoonju's doing. Princess Lee Seol feels lost for a moment. To continue the press conference, she nervously steps onto the stage, then speaks weakly to one or two reporters, announcing her plan to enter the palace. Just then Hae-young learns Yoonju blocked reporters from entering. He immediately sends Lee Seol a note telling her reporters are waiting in the palace parking lot. Lee Seol understands right away. She announces the press conference will move to the parking lot, then runs outside without hesitation. To move faster, Lee Seol takes off her uncomfortable high heels and runs barefoot to the reporters. At first the reporters are upset about being blocked, but Lee Seol grabs a chair to stand on, then uses a megaphone to answer all their questions. Her straightforward approach quickly wins the reporters' hearts. The press conference becomes an unexpected success. Chairman Park watches with satisfaction. Hae-young finally relaxes seeing Lee Seol handle it well. But Yoonju, whose plan backfired, feels bad. Later, Lee Seol's popularity soars. She soon becomes a national icon. The president notices Lee Seol's fame and wants to use her as his group spokesperson. He orders Hae-young to arrange a meeting with the princess. Hae-young politely refuses the president. But the president then approaches Yoonju. Yoonju has been looking for ways to ruin Lee Seol. Seeing this opportunity, she immediately finds Lee Seol and suggests organizing a charity event at the orphanage where Lee Seol grew up. Lee Seol agrees without hesitation, since the orphanage helped her in the past. Hae-young gets angry when he finds out. He scolds Lee Seol harshly. But Lee Seol's simple mind doesn't understand why he's upset, so the matter is dropped. At a crucial moment, Yoonju again asks Lee Seol to attend the event. Lee Seol knows Yoonju has bad intentions, so she refuses, following her rule never do what enemies suggest. So Lee Seol cancels her visit to the orphanage, but, not wanting to disappoint the children, she invites them to the palace instead. What she doesn't realize is, this makes no real difference. Soon the president arrives with reporters. What was meant to be a kind act turns into a publicity stunt for the president. Princess Lee Seol becomes just a prop for his political show. Seeing Lee Seol confused, Hae-young steps in front of the reporters. He says the princess has no political agenda. He also declares the royal family's political independence. The crowd reacts with shock. The president storms off angrily. Lee Seol doesn't understand why Hae-young did this. Instead, she scolds him harshly, seeing her ignorance. Hae-young explains the truth. The president is using her to push his welfare bill. If Lee Seol keeps supporting him, people will think she favors her own orphanage. Unfairly, this could ruin the orphanage. To stop this, Hae-young openly opposes the president. He risks everything for her. Only then does Lee Seol realize the gravity of the situation. She feels deeply regretful. Hae-young can no longer hold back his feelings. So he confesses his love to Lee Seol that he asks if she can stop being a princess. Can't she just live as his woman instead? Hae-young wants Lee Seol to leave everything behind and run away with him. But Lee Seol knows if she does this it will only bring more trouble to Hae-young, so she has to say no. The next day, news about the president's palace visit makes headlines everywhere because of Hae-young's statement. Lee Seol faces no bad publicity at all, but Hae-young is in big trouble. For standing against the president, he gets suspended from his diplomat job. To protect Lee Seol, Hae-young decides to leave Korea. He plans to visit his father in New York. Then he goes shopping for a suitcase, but Lee Seol happens to be in the same store. Since Hae-young confessed to her, Lee Seol doesn't know how to face him, so she hides inside a suitcase. But Hae-young sees everything. To tease Lee Seol, he buys the suitcase she's hiding in, then drags her away like a sack of potatoes. Lee Seol feels super embarrassed, not wanting to leave with regrets. Hae-young takes Lee Seol too. They go to the place where they first met. Then they happily take photos together. After spending the day together, they slowly get over the awkwardness of their confession. When they return to the palace, Hae-young packs his bags. Then he quietly leaves. When Lee Seol and Professor Nam return to the palace, Yoon-ju angrily scolds Lee Seol. After listening for a while, Lee Seol finally understands Hae-young was kicked out for offending the president. Lee Seol feels extremely guilty and heartbroken. To stop Hae-young from leaving, Lee Seol rushes to the airport. She tries hard to convince him to stay, but just then Yoon-ju calls them. She tells them to return to the palace immediately. She says she has a big surprise to announce. Confused, they return to the palace. At that moment Yoon-ju shows everyone a perfume pouch left by Empress Myung-seong. This pouch is a royal heirloom passed down to female descendants. Only princesses of the royal family can own it. To Lee Seol's shock, the pouch now belongs to her sister, Lee Dan. Everyone is stunned. If this is true, it means Lee Seol is not a real princess. But this is all part of Yoon-ju and Lee Dan's evil plan. Years ago, Lee Dan and Lee Seol were taken in by the same orphanage. Lee Dan took advantage of Lee Seol's memory loss. She kept the sachet for herself. Later they were adopted by the same family. They became sisters, but Lee Dan grew jealous because everyone liked Lee Seol more. She hated Lee Seol for it. When Lee Seol became the nation's beloved princess, Lee Dan's jealousy grew even stronger. Later she learned Yoon-ju was looking for the sachet to bring down her sister, Lee Seol. She quickly teamed up with Yoon-ju to create this fake princess scheme. Chairman Park doesn't believe Lee Dan is the real princess. But Lee Dan describes in detail her childhood escape with her father. She even talks about how Hae-young's father chased them during their escape. This is something even Lee Seol didn't know. Everyone is shocked by this. Only a few people knew this secret. What makes Lee Seol even more upset is when she hears from her rival, Yoon-ju, that the father of the man she loves was the one who hunted down her royal father. At this moment, Princess Lee Seol is completely confused. At the same time, news about the fake princess spreads everywhere. Thanks to Yoon-ju's secret plans, the royal family's restoration is about to collapse. Chairman Park becomes furious. He suspects Hae-young planned all this. Hae-young feels heartbroken about this. But what hurts him more is Lee Seol finds out his father tried to kill her royal father. Yoon-ju keeps attacking Lee Seol. To force Lee Seol to give up, she starts threatening her. If you don't want the world to know that Hae-young's father hunted royal descendants, and shame Hae-young forever, then leave the palace and give up being princess. Lee Seol loves Hae-young deeply now to protect him from harm. The next day, Lee Seol goes to Yoonju. She says she'll leave the palace. But Lee Seol warns Yoonju not to celebrate yet. She'll find the truth about her father's death. When she returns, she'll make Yoonju pay double. After this warning, Lee Seol packs her bags. She leaves the palace with her father's precious photo. Meanwhile, Hae-young finds Lee Dan's hiding place. He says he has proof she's fake. But to avoid embarrassing both sisters, that's why I didn't show it. I hope Lee Dan won't keep being stubborn. She should give up trying to fight for the princess title. But Lee Dan's real goal isn't to compete with Lee Seol for being princess. She just can't stand seeing Lee Seol live better than her. She only wants people to doubt Lee Seol's royal identity. So Lee Seol can't remain princess. So she ignores Hae-young completely. To stop the sisters from hurting each other more, Hae-young asks Lee Seol's adoptive mother to help. But Lee Dan even ignores her adoptive mother's calls. Meanwhile, Lee Seol goes to the police station to investigate her father's real cause of death. But they say it was just a normal car accident. The records are already deleted. So Lee Seol thinks of another way. When she first entered the palace, she offered rewards for finding her father's old friends. Many people called back then. She quickly gets all the contact lists from the palace office, then calls them one by one. There are too many people. Lee Seol falls asleep in a cafe. Halfway through calling, soon customers recognize she's the princess. The cafe becomes chaotic. Not wanting to reveal her location, Lee Seol quickly runs away, but accidentally bumps into a woman. The freshly brewed cat poop coffee spills all over the woman's clothes. The woman gets very angry. She grabs Lee Seol and demands money. Just as Lee Seol doesn't know what to do, Hae-young appears. He casually takes out a check and throws it at the woman. When the woman sees the amount on the check, she gets so scared. Then Hae-young takes Lee Seol to Professor Nam's house. He lets Lee Seol rest there for now. Chairman Park gets furious when he learns the princess left the palace. He immediately sends Yoonju to bring Lee Seol back. Yoonju quickly finds them at Professor Nam's house. This time she threatens Lee Seol to go back and tell Chairman Park she quits being princess. But Hae-young comes and takes Lee Seol away. Then he brings her to a villa. Here they forget all their troubles. They sleep peacefully by the warm fireplace all night. The next day their love for each other reaches its peak. Hae-young even gently wipes water from Lee Seol's face with a towel. Then he carefully ties up Lee Seol's hair for her. Just as they think they can keep enjoying their sweet time together, a phone call ruins their happy moment. The call is from Hae-young's father to find out the truth about her father's death. Lee Seol directly asks Hae-young's father. She asks if he killed her royal father. Hae-young's father says he didn't do it. He says they'll talk about the details when they meet. Then he quickly hangs up the phone. At this moment, Lee Seol suddenly remembers her childhood. She realizes Hae-young's father brought her here when she was little. It was right after her royal father died. She thinks Hae-young's father is hiding the truth. To find the real answer, she decides to leave Hae-young. She goes alone to ask Chairman Park what really happened. Soon she arrives at Chairman Park's house. She directly asks Chairman Park if Hae-young's father killed her royal father. Chairman Park looks ashamed. He says his son did threaten Lee Seol's royal father, but her royal father's death was an accident. Although Hae-young's father wasn't directly involved in her royal father's death, Lee Seol thinks if Chairman Park hadn't tried to rebuild the royal family, her royal father wouldn't have died. Hae-young's father wouldn't have gone abroad. Others wouldn't have suffered so much. So Lee Seol says she won't rebuild the royal family anymore. Then she stands up to leave. Chairman Park quickly moves his old body to block Lee Seol's way. To make Lee Seol change her mind, Chairman Park kneels before Lee Seol to beg for forgiveness. But Lee Seol remains firm. Chairman Park gets so upset that he faints. Chairman Park is rushed to the hospital. Yoonju keeps pressuring Lee Seol. She says Chairman Park's collapse is all Lee Seol's fault. Just then Professor Nam pulls Yoonju aside. He says the pouch Lee Dan has is fake. He switched the real one. If Yoonju keeps blocking the royal restoration, he will expose all her wrongdoings. Yoonju grits her teeth in anger. She quickly calls Lee Dan and gives her a large sum of money, telling her to cut ties with family and flee abroad. Yoonju does this to pin all the blame on Lee Dan. Lee Dan realizes she's just a pawn in their game. When her foster mom hears Lee Dan plans to run, she begs Lee Dan to stop her foolish actions. But Lee Dan won't listen. As she tries to escape, Hae-young reveals a harsh truth. She's banned from leaving the country. Yoonju's money is frozen, and she can never see her family again. Lee Dan is so scared she wets herself. At the same time, Chairman Park finally recovers. Lee Seol doesn't know how to face Hae-young, so she finally decides to leave. Hae-young stands outside the door. He keeps saying cheesy romantic lines. He talks from day until night. After his persistent efforts, Lee Seol finally comes out. The weather is very dry now. To prevent dehydration, they immediately press their 15 centimeters lips together to share moisture. After getting their fill, the effect is too strong. Hae-young asks to stay overnight. Lee Seol strongly protests this shameless request, but secretly she feels happy. Just then the doorbell rings. Lee Seol opens the door and sees all her friends were invited by Hae-young. Everyone sits together, eating hot pot and singing. The atmosphere becomes lively. Lee Seol's long-held sadness disappears. At the same time, Professor Nam holds a Royal Foundation meeting about the real and fake princess issue. He proposes to remove Yoon-ju and demands she resigns from the position of Royal Foundation chairperson. This proposal receives unanimous support from all council members. Yoon-ju is now forced to leave the palace. The next day, Lee Seol feels happy after partying all night. Just then, everyone sees Park Hae-young holding a press conference alone. He plans to reveal how Chairman Park misused royal military funds in his youth, causing royal descendants to live in hardship. He also explains how his own father blocked royal restoration and how he later changed his mind to support the restoration. Then he publicly apologizes to the nation for his father and grandfather. Seeing this news, Lee Seol rushes to meet Park Hae-young. She feels heartbroken seeing him bear all the blame alone. But Park Hae-young tells her not to feel guilty about it. He believes revealing the truth is the only way to end their family's long feud. Then Park Hae-young visits Chairman Park's hospital bed. He apologizes to Chairman Park. Surprisingly, Chairman Park doesn't blame him. Instead, he praises Park Hae-young's courage because now he can finally let go of his long-hidden guilt. Chairman Park also apologizes for the difficult life he caused Park Hae-young and his father. After entrusting the princess to Park Hae-young, Chairman Park dies right there on the spot. Everyone present feels deep sadness about this. Just then, Yoon-ju's phone suddenly rings. The caller is Hae-young's father. She's still trying hard to stop the royal family's restoration. For this, she secretly meets with an assemblyman who wants to overthrow the royal family. At the same time, after Chairman Park's death, his huge fortune needs to be given to someone. By law, Hae-young's father will get half of the money. Only if he gives up his right to it can the money be used to rebuild the palace and help people. To convince his father, Hae-young decides to visit him in America. Before leaving, he sincerely asks Lee Seol to return to the palace. After all these events, Lee Seol feels she should take responsibility, not run away. So Lee Seol returns to the palace as princess. Her first act is to challenge Yoon-ju. She tells, "Oh Yoon-ju," she's fired from her job at the museum. She orders Yoon-ju to pack and leave immediately. Now Yoon-ju can't threaten the royal family anymore. After removing all the bad people from the palace, Lee Seol starts joining many charity activities. When she finally notices Hae-young has already gone abroad and stays away for months, this makes Lee Seol miss him terribly. She keeps hoping Hae-young will return to her soon. Just when she's about to turn into a waiting stone, she finally gets a text from Hae-young. She jumps for joy excitedly, almost falling by accident. At that moment, Hae-young catches her with a hug. Since they haven't seen each other for so long, they immediately start kissing with 15 centimeters lips. Hae-young also brings good news this time. His father gave up the inheritance rights. Now all of Chairman Park's assets are under his name. With just one signature, trillions in assets will go to the royal family. While everyone waits for him to sign the papers, Hae-young makes no move. During a press interview, a reporter asks if the assets will return to society if the royal restoration vote fails. Hae-young asks the reporter back, would they easily give up such a huge fortune? His words shock everyone. People start wondering if he wants to keep all the money. Everyone suspects he might take the inheritance for himself. Different groups try hard to win Park Hae-young over. When Professor Nam hears the news, he gets nervous. He immediately asks Park Hae-young why he hasn't signed yet. Park Hae-young replies with deep meaning. Now everyone treats this inheritance as their own. People fear he might keep it all for himself. That's why they strongly vote to restore the royal family. Professor Nam finally understands Park Hae-young is using people's envy of the rich. He's making citizens vote yes to restore the royal family. Lee Seol doesn't know his plan and starts to panic. She keeps pushing Park Hae-young to sign, But he boldly says if she wants to be princess, she should serve him well to restore the royal family. Lee Seol starts pleasing Park Hae-young just before the public vote. Park Hae-young signs without hesitation. Then Lee Seol understands his good intentions. Lee Seol feels deeply moved to thank Park Hae-young. Lee Seol takes him to a night market. They live like a normal couple, but they don't expect their appearance causes a commotion. Soon after the public vote begins, more people vote than ever before. In the end, everyone supports restoring the royal family. They feel happy about this result. Everyone feels very happy about this result. But new problems arise because Lee Seol and Hae-young's relationship is exposed. Many people accuse them of using the royal restoration as an excuse to avoid inheritance tax. To avoid suspicion, Hae-young has to go abroad as a diplomat. He stays away for 2 years. When the public criticism finally calms down, Hae-young returns home. He plans to propose to Lee Seol. Lee Seol discovers his secret, but the president doesn't want their relationship to affect the royal family and government stability, so he sends Hae-young to America as a diplomat again. This makes Hae-young hesitate. Their conflicts become more serious. Not wanting to have regrets, Hae-young proposes to Lee Seol before leaving for America. But Lee Seol is angry about his sudden departure. She turns around and leaves without a word. Hae-young boards the plane to America with a heavy heart. As Hae-young sighs sadly, the face he's been longing for appears before him. Hae-young is deeply moved. This marks the end of the drama story. Thank you for watching.